All right, welcome to Mr. Miller's Woodshop podcast. I'm your host, Bobby Miller. I'm here in the woodshop, and you'll look over my shoulder here. If you're on video, I've got a rocking chair from a student at this stage of their project. I don't let them store it where they store the rest of the stuff. Like, you'll store it next to my lunch. I don't want my lunch stolen, but I certainly don't want your stuff stolen either. And it's pretty exciting. That's just the time of the trimester where we're at, where kids are really finishing up, and so it's uh, makes for a lot of fun. I am excited to report that we've had a really great week here. It's Skills USA week here. Whenever you're listening to this, and so it was a cool thing because we're a Skills USA school now. We just started a chapter, and I've got three competitors that we're hoping to send to the nationals in June down in Atlanta, Georgia. So we'll see if that happens. I'm excited. We'll see how we do. Another little fun thing to report: we had George Von Driska of the Woodworkers Guild of America in here yesterday to speak to our students, and he brought a wonderful presentation, lots of video or lots of pictures to show, and it's kind of special too because my students have never had him like as a safety video this year, but every year prior of me teaching, I showed something of his safety demo. I've been doing videos like crazy, so I'm more using myself now because it's on the machine they'll use with the guy that they recognize, and I'm also able to point to little things and stuff like that in the shop that help out. So it's kind of nice that like he was able to come in, share his expertise, and I've watched him since I was a high school woodshop student, and so it was fun to put a face to the guy, and he's a good guy. You always wonder like what are these guys like in real life? That in the woodworking world, he's larger than life. He's a great guy. Came in, had a cup of coffee, got a chance to talk. He said some really nice stuff on Instagram story, and that was cool. So thank you, George, if you're watching this. Before we get into what we're talking about today, I want to encourage you to like, subscribe, follow, rate the show. You guys know what to do, whatever app or internet site you're watching this or listening to on. Help me out, helps with the algorithm and helps us grow a little bit and try and get more people to hear this and recognize it. Because today we're talking about something that I feel like I do a really good job. I'm not Mr. Bragger here, but that kid in the hallway that causes problems, that kid in your classroom that just doesn't get it, that kid that, boy, they're going to jail someday. That kid is in my class thriving. And it's been the theme of my entire teaching career, at least in the wood shop, where I take that kid and things turn around for them. They might still have that rebel personality and that, kind of don't tread on the attitude. Like, fine, keep it, but at least you have a school and you've developed a smidge of discipline based off of what I've done. So I'm going to turn this into a series, and I'll probably talk about this just as they come up. I've got a list of some of my all-time greats here, students that have really challenged me, but then at the end of it really became a cool thing. And I guess if you think about, there's an internet meme out there that's got all the animals of the jungle lined up looking at this tree, and the teacher says, to make it fair, we all have the same rules. We climb that tree. The monkey looks at it like, no problem, piece of cake. The elephant looks at it like, can't do that, I'll break the tree. And the fish is thinking like, I'm going to die doing that. And so what's really cool with the way that I've got things set up here is that I differentiate a teacher work for just meet the student where they're at and cater basically to them how they want to learn. And so that's that video demonstration. You can go back and find episodes where I talk about that. But it really is tough as a teacher. Like I've looked at that meme several times, and you think about it, yeah, but okay, we do have to get through safety training. I do need their parents to sign the release form so that they can work in here safely. So usually it's a rough start with that kid because that kid has heard it all before. He's heard like, yes, you got to get this test done. You got to get this form signed, and they don't do that, and it's such a challenge at first. And this is where it challenges me at times too because I'll kind of shake my head, and it's a gamble at every kid. It was like, is this even worth it? And of course, every kid, every child is worth it. But boy, it gets to your patience level, right? Of like, what can we do? And there's usually some attitude that comes with that kid. And so a lot of times teachers will warn me about them. I was like, oh, I had that kid last year. Good luck. And I really hate hearing that because I hate that attitude from a teacher because I don't like having, the attitude back at me either. I've got toddlers and I know, well, like kids have attitudes and it doesn't stop in high school either. And so kind of die to yourself at that point. But yeah, I don't know how I want to go about this. Maybe I'll just kind of get into this. I had a student last fall where he was that kid, right? He had just moved to the community from North Minneapolis, which is a rough side of town, and so he moves up here to get out of it and start fresh. And so here's his fresh start, but he still carried all those habits that he had since he was a kid, right? Takes my class. He's there probably 50% of the time, and he's going through the live demonstrations: how to use a table saw, how to use the bandsaw, how to use a wide belt, how to use the miter saw. And for the most part, he's engaged. I mean, he sits in the back. He's a little chatty. I direct him, redirect him. I ask him to put his phone away, but after a few times, like, if you're not getting this, I have enough resources that you will be forced to go back and watch. And so I don't, that's not the hill that I die on anymore, where I, holler at kids, like, you got to be listening here, eyes on me, all that. Like, it's on you. Okay. This is a safety deal. Like, it's on you to keep your fingers on your hand. I'll help. Okay. And you will not use this until you're done with the test. But I don't die on that hill anymore. And so we go through safety training. He doesn't take any of the tests, and class goes on, and he is thinking, like, I want to start this. I want to do this. And this has happened so many times, but the one of the fall just got to me because we go through this whole, song and dance. He says to me, as I'm telling him what to do, you never taught us any of this. And I just, something in me just snapped, and I just laid into him. And I'm not a get in your face hollering at your teacher, but he was walking out of the room like he was ready to just leave. And I'm right there next to him. It's loud in here. The shop is gone. And so I'm firmly telling him all the resources on Google Classroom, all the resources QR coded around the room, the live demonstration he attended that he was on his phone at, and the times that he skipped class. And he's heard that before. I mean, I really did not think he was going to come back. And that was one on me where I just, too much. Okay. But boy, I feel like I am the teacher that's going above and beyond, giving them these resources. And it's just that attitude got to me. So wrong. Don't do that. I would not do that again. Hopefully that's the case where I'm not doing that again. But in just a second here, I've got this space heater that's going to just boil me right here. It's winter in Minnesota, and wouldn't you know it, the wood shop is cold. But anyway, I didn't think that kid was going to come back after the verbal exchange we had. And I think a day went by where he didn't come, but he doesn't come to school. He gets taxied in from North Minneapolis, and that's got to be a challenge as a teenager, right? And so he's 14, brand new high school, brand new friends, and that next time he comes in, and I emailed all of his people, his parents, his case manager, his counselor, his assistant principal, and all these people are on board with, like, what happened. And so, like, I got my rear covered, that we're having trouble with this boy. We're going to call him Jay. All right. It's kind of what his name. I'm not going to use any real names for these kids because I'm sure a couple of them will listen here. And I've got it on good authority. A bunch of alumni are listening now too. So if you recognize one of your buddies, lovingly share this with them. Okay. And if you know someone like this, share that with them too. And it's not to pick on anybody. It's just, that's the state of education right now, is where we're having so much trouble with that kid. Right. And so this kid comes back, Jay, and he actually apologized to me and said he'd like to get back going. And I was like, cool, that's that. And we had a couple good days. He went through the safety tests, and I got him on the saws, and he was kind of digging it. And at this point, the class is probably at the stage where they're standing up their end tables, and so it's starting to look like a project. And he's a little discouraged on that, and he's still coming late. There's still a little bit of an attitude because, he'll come late. They're tired. He just sat in a taxi for 45 minutes, so he wants to put his head down and sleep. And I got enough going on. I'm not gonna be the sleep police. And if I'm walking by you, I'll tap your chair, like, yo, not a great sleeping spot, man, and move on. And there's all kinds of theories on that. Oh, you let him sleep. You don't know what happened. Like, I do know what happened. I talk to this kid often. He's a great kid. Start to make some headway, and I get an email where tragically house burnt down. And so he comes to school the next day. I'm like, I can't believe you're here, man. Like, tell me what happened. What's going on? And he was like, oh yeah, well, we lost all our stuff. We're in a hotel room, and your heart breaks for the kid. And I've softened towards him. He's starting to do some good work, and it's expected that he has some extra behaviors. And so one of those days, he comes in, he puts his head down, he's sleeping. Didn't even say anything to him. I just walked by him, and he just bit my head off. And he's frustrated because he's behind. And like, the truth is because he sat on your rear the first 2 weeks. Okay, that's the truth. But I didn't hit him with that. Like, okay, let's work together. I got nothing going on right now. The class is going around me, but like, let's work on this. Where you at? Go get all your stuff and let's put it on the table and see what we got. And he's mismanaged some of his parts. He's like, I can't find my legs for my end table, and I think that kid stole them. And like, nope. Okay, here, let's go. Let's try it again. No big deal. And we actually ended up finding him later that hour. But it's kind of nice to be able to just kind of sit down with those kids. And gosh, I'm not going to get anywhere close to talking about all the kids that I wanted to. And so, long story longer, apparently, Jay finished his end table. He's yet to bring it home, but every time he stops by, he smiles and shakes my hand. And, he's like, yeah, I'm coming to get it. I'm coming to get it this Friday. I'm like, let your cab driver know, I guess. Let's see. I guess I got to skip a couple of these, but that rebel attitude is just so pervasive in the kids that I have down here. And I don't view it as a bad thing because they really can exercise that here. There's so many IEP meetings where I've got, and these are individualized education plans, is what I mean by IEP, where students failing every class. He's got an A in Miller's class. Okay, he finished a jewelry box early, and he's 100%. And I take tests, and we do extra stuff on Google Classroom. We're on CAD. Like, this isn't the easy A class really anymore. So yeah, boy, I think let's talk about the class of 2019 up at Cambridge. So this is right before COVID. I had this construction class. There was only 13 kids in it, and I think the counselors did that on purpose because they looked at who took the class that year. And when the kids sat down, I had maybe half of them in my woodworking classes, and so I had that good rapport with them anyway. And kind of a rough start with the other kids. The kids who have had me before knew, like, yep, you got to get through safety training, then we get to have some fun, and butt heads with a couple of their buddies. And I use their friends too that have had me, like, hey, let I got to think of a good name for this kiddo because he was something else. We'll call him T. Okay, T. He was like not having it, and his buddies all got safety trained, and now they're out working building sheds, and he's just not doing it. And the rest of the class is like almost on his side because they're like, authority, buck the man, and the case just kind of worked out. Like, what are we gonna do here? Then he finally gets into it, but the rest of the class was such a rough group, but they listened to me. Like, it was a whole class of that kids. We have a tornado drill in the spring, and so we're all shuffled into an interior building in the school, and ours was supposed to be in this room where we sent kids when they were misbehaving. It's a cool down room kind of thing. There's a couple staff that staffed it, and so we were supposed to go into there. We call the tornado drill mid-class. They also got the tool belts on, and we go in there. I tell them where to go. They all know where the room is, and we go in there. They all go first, and when I walk in, the eyes of the attendants in there are just like wide, like, who? And literally, she said, "Who has this class?" And I walked in, and that's just my gang there. It's a light crew, but we've got 13 kiddos in here, and we're building sheds. We're building 5 sheds with 13 kids, and 6 if you count the one that I was building, as an example. And they got the tool belts on with hammers and nails, and they're supposed to sit there for like 10 minutes while we do this drill. And one of the boys took their hammers out of the bag, and it was just kind of like the standoff between the gal that they probably squared off against a million times. And I just said, hey, T, will you put your hammer back in your holster there? And he did. And it was like she looked at me like I was able to part the Red Sea. Like now I'm just a shop teacher. Like this, we get to have some fun in here, and that's where these kids thrive. And one of the kids in that class, I don't know what he went on to, but he had long hair, super rock band guy. Built a guitar in my woodworking class, and he wanted to be a social um, expert or something like that, where all you do is go to parties, and you're the party animal guy. I'm like, okay, I hope it works out for you, man. But yeah, I've got some tricks and tips that I think you could do. So I've had a couple kids that just can't give up the cell phone, and we use them in my classes for the QR codes, as you know. So I don't take them from kids, but I told one kid, "You get off that game, or I'm going to take it from you." Or I think he was on some sort of a texting app. So he's on the texting app. Tell him 3 times, put it away. And the last time I come by, I'm like, if you don't put that away right now, I'm taking it from you. And he put it in his pocket and he walked out of my room. I'm like, all right, write him up, email mom, case manager, blah, blah, blah. Go through all that song and dance for paperwork. Goes back in the next day, and we still kind of have that issue. And I said, I can't give you homework. Got to do it here. So we can't have the phone out all the time. And he's like, okay, all right. Still didn't do all that much. The next day, I took out our Shaper Origin, and it was for a different class, but I had it set up right where that boy sits. And the kids in that next class, I got to get going here, but kids in the next class, what are we doing? We're on the Shaper, and I told them, don't worry about cleaning up, just leave it here, just clean it all off and put everything away. And they leave it there, and the kid comes in that next day, and he's like, what the heck? This stuff is on my desk. I'm like, oh, you want me to show you how you use it? And the Shaper Origin is such a cool tool. It's a handheld CNC. And so I show him, and he's all about it. And he built this cool little engraved, I don't even know what it was, okay, but he built this cool thing, brought it home. The next day, he's like, okay, I want to do that again. I'm like, yeah, man, once you get your end table stood up, we'll pull that thing back out. He's like, okay, well, can you help me on the table? So I'm like, yes. All right, let's go get to work. And so I got him. It just feels so good to have that hook set of like, these kids are into it now, and he's into it, so it makes it kind of fun. Yeah, the feedback I've gotten on this too, just going on industry tours and talking to folks in industry, is like people at the head of these companies or the project managers, like they were that kid that had all those issues. They were that kid that mouthed off to teachers. They were that kid that caused trouble in the hallways. And so Matt Craig is one that comes to mind just most recently. And Randy of Randy's Cabinets up in Grand Rapids, they gave this speech at Safety Speeds Manufacturing Day that just rocked the house. I mean, it was almost inappropriate with some of the stories that they told and just kind of the fun that they had in their youth. And, it was something that my students really related to. And they see like these guys are successful. Like they're not in suits, like they're just, dressed like normal guys. But wow, you each own a cabinet shop. How much money did your company make last year? You live on how many acres? Like these are the things that that kid likes to hear. That it doesn't have to be, well, you got to pass this test and then you'll get into college and then you'll get a job in accounting. And like that does not sound fun to them. Building something with their hands, having some clout, not so much clout, but some agency to do what they want is so cool. So I got to wrap it up right there. This one way longer than I thought, and I've got so many more stories. So I'm going to turn this into gosh, I didn't even talk about JR, because that was a great one that challenged me again this year. Like, this has been kind of like the all-star year since my first couple of years teaching, where I've been challenged in the behavior management department. And boy, I've got a lot more to say on this. So follow me, like, subscribe. Best place is probably Instagram or LinkedIn. Mr. Miller's Woodshop everywhere. And so thank you for tuning in. Hope you enjoyed the mural if you're on video. If not, you didn't have to not enjoy me on camera. And we'll look forward to talking to you again. Thanks, folks.